This is the Griffin Realty Group Ask-A-Griffin podcast, episode number 5. How does the wrong asking price hurt me? Are you a buyer, seller, or a real estate agent who has questions about buying or selling residential real estate, but you can't seem to find an easy way to get the answers? Hey, you're definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Griffin Realty Group and the host of the Ask-A-Griffin podcast. So to help you take immediate action to get started in the right direction, if you actually need to sell or buy property right now or in the very near future, you can take advantage of our free step-by-step guides waiting for you at griffincourses.com. That's Griffin courses.com. All right, let's get started. How does the wrong asking price hurt me? The wrong asking price. How do you know if you have the wrong asking price? I get it. And we've been going through this pricing series, and I want to go a little bit deeper into here. So let me go back to the last episode where I talked about a trading range. I want to talk about that again, because even when I'm coaching real estate agents, I get that question a lot. People say, well, what do you mean by a trading range? Well, I can't help myself as I relate the real estate market to the equity markets or the stock market. They work similarly. They are marketplaces. And so these valuable assets, for example, a share of stock, a piece of property, those assets trade inside of a certain price range. That's all it means. It's not rocket science. It's just how things are priced. How does a marketplace find the right price for something? And so you want to understand that this isn't a game of pricing it right bingo. I say that all the time. I am not interested in coming to your house along with 4 or 5 other realtors, and everybody's going to sit down and say something about their resume and how great they are, and then we're all going to try to guess the price that you want. That's ridiculous. It's haphazard, and it's dangerous as far as the whole marketplace is concerned, because it can really upset you. It can change your plans and your life, especially if it's a primary property that you're dealing with. So I don't like that. All of you, please stop playing pricing it right bingo. Rather, go through a process of trying to establish before you list what is a reasonable trading range. In other words, a reasonable price range within which your property may sell. And you're using evidence. I mean, we dismiss this concept of comparable market analysis so quickly. We talk about that. It's actually a process. It's not just a thing you do. You come in with 5 properties and say, oh, voila, you must be in the middle of these. You have to do some analysis. And this is for both real estate agents and sellers alike. Slow down. Go back and forth. Have some discourse. Sellers, please stop putting your real estate agents on a defensive mode so that they don't feel okay about discussing price, because they feel like they're going to lose the opportunity to list the property because there's so much price pressure. You should be curious. If you are going to interview multiple agents, have them all take you through why they think it's a certain price by showing you evidence, showing you pricing ranges for what did the money buy that you were hoping to get, and being honest. Would you buy yours or those? That's how you establish this concept of a proper trading range for your own property with your real estate agent. Next, if you cheat to the high end, which we all do, even when I go to sell my own house, I can't help myself. I want to look at the range and I want to cheat to the highest end where there's evidence. I will not take myself outside of the range where there's no evidence. If I can't make some reasonable estimation that my property should fetch what another one did with similar features, I don't even go there anymore. But I will cheat to the highest end. However, I'm the problem when I do that, because I know full well, having done a real estate show on TV with A&E, we actually cut the price in half of all the properties and would start the bidding from halfway. We thought whatever price was, cut it in half, start the open bidding in a transparent process, and bid it up. Show was called 60 Seconds to Sell. And it used this concept of market making like anything, a bid-ask system. And so we would find sort of where it might be the lower end of the trading range, and that would give us an idea of how to bracket ourselves. Maybe sometimes it was so hot it would be bid right up to what the seller was interested in getting, but that's how you really create a marketplace for a property. Now, most people don't want to use that methodology. It's too harrowing. I mean, in the bad economy environment that we did it in, everybody was willing to, because if they had a real reason to sell, they just wanted people to come and tell them what they thought it was worth. And that's how it happened. happen. But most of the time what would happen, buyers would come in, bid the price up, and we would have at least the lower end of the trading range. Now you could put a reasonable asking price on it or begin your negotiation, close the gap, and it would be done. Okay? So what happens when you price it outside of the evidence-based range is that you're actually prohibiting a lot of buyers. You see, if you could find the sweet spot for any property, and this is why there's no such thing as pricing it right bingo. There's nobody that's really that good enough to say, this will sell for this. I'm not saying that people don't get 100% exactly of their asking price. It does happen. But that's like a rabbit out of a hat methodology if we're trying to use that magic number as the way to find this. What you want to do is do the evidence, and in some cases in a good market, so for example, downtown Boston's been very good for a long time. There were several years post-recession where you could price it a little bit under what you thought it would be, and the average sold price to final asking price was about 101 to 102%. So you had that little mechanism of multiple bids bidding it up another 1-2% on average. Okay. But what if it's a normalized market where there's always a little bit of give and take on the bid and the ask, right? That trading range concept. And you're way out here too far. Think about it in the stock market. If Google or Apple, for example, I was just looking at Apple, and Apple was trading in and around $268 to $273 a share. Well, what if somebody came into the marketplace and said, well, 273, why don't I just put it at 280? Well, you're not even in the game in that moment in time. Unless there's a lot of volatility in the stock market, you're outside the range. And now you have to wait, hopefully, for a rising tide to come back. Now, if something keeps improving, like the stock market or the underlying stock and its fundamentals, and it's growing and cash is flowing, it's moving up towards that number, sure. But when it comes to a primary residential property, for the most part, you're looking to move on with your life. And you can't lose track of that. Once you have a real reason to sell and your motivation is at a 10 or above on a scale of 1 to 10, and I mean above, we've had people tell us, I'm a 12, I got to go. Don't go outside that range like that, or you're prohibiting, if not all buyers, a lot of buyers who recognize, hey, that's not quite close enough. And see, a lot of people, this is where you get into that trouble, sellers of saying, well, why don't you just bring me a buyer and bring me an offer? It doesn't work like that, folks. You really want a real estate agent to say, hey, I know my seller has the wrong asking price on this, but he or she would love you to bring an offer. Do you really think that's the best way for a real estate agent to have to represent you? It's insanity. Don't do that to yourself. Okay, so you're prohibiting buyers by being outside that range, and you don't want to do that. Next, I know everybody wants to go out to the higher end of the evidence-based range if they're doing this correctly, but don't stay there too long. Understand the dynamics of your marketplace. If nothing's happening and nobody's coming and you can hear tumbleweeds rolling down the street, right, and meaning no buyers are coming, all you're doing is lengthening your process. By the way, there's too many of you think that, oh my gosh, now I have to reset it to zero. Well, like what? A buyer can't figure out that you've been on the marketplace sometime before. These days, there's a footprint on the internet. You really think that's going to hoodwink some buyer into thinking that, oh my gosh, this just came on at the right price? Why are we going through all that nonsense, right? So have your way at it. Try the higher end of the evidence-based range, but 2 weeks to 3 weeks to 4 weeks, depending on what kind of market you're in, is enough. Okay? I'm not saying that seasonally you might not hit, a rough winter and maybe you went on a little bit too early. That's different. I'm just saying in general, all you're doing is lengthening the process regardless of seasonal changes. So there's no reason to do that. You want to cheat a little bit high to the evidence-based range, do it quickly and get it over with, and then move it back down and stop prohibiting those buyers. Okay? The last piece of this is when I give this advice, and here I'm just giving it on a podcast, so it's generically to everybody, and I hope everybody would listen to it. By the way, if you're trying to become a client of mine at the Griffin Realty Group, I'm going to tell you this, but I'm going to show you the evidence as to where we think it's at. And again, if you have an idea of what you think it's at, if there's evidence to support it, wonderful. We have a meeting of the minds. If there's no evidence, I'd rather turn the listing down than let you down 30 days later. Okay? So the last piece, though, is you've got to get rid of these little quips that we have that put us in a defensive mode. And I think I've said this in a few of the podcasts before this. Stop talking about giving your property away. Again, I will repeat. I have used an auction-like method in the past to sell properties. And people that would allow us to do that understood that we were going to drop the price. It's a non-binding auction method, and we were going to bid it up. So if there's anybody that has been intimately involved in making a market for single houses by dropping the price in half, it's yours truly. And I'm telling you, it was impossible to give it away. Why? Because the pricing mechanism works where a lot of buyers become interested and they bid the price up to really where the market range is. So I've already tried to give them away. Guess what? You can't. So stop saying that. And when you come down on your price range, stop being so defensive. Nobody's saying that you have to sign an offer at a price that you just can't accept for whatever reason it might be. It still doesn't dismiss that that's what it's worth to the marketplace, right? But maybe you don't want to sell it for that price. That's fine. And that's why I'm saying I would have a real reason to sell and a high level of motivation. 10 out of 10 is what I recommend minimum, right? Because you'll stop saying things like that because you're not going to give it away. You want to give away a house? Here's how you do it, okay? You sign it away to somebody for free. That's how you give away a house. And if you're not about to give it to charity or pass it on to your heirs, it doesn't even have a place in the discussion other than an overly emotional reaction to having to deal with real price. Okay? Let me just go back and talk about this. This is a question I get all the time. How does the wrong asking price hurt me when I'm listing my property? Because there's such a thing as a trading range, and if you go outside of it, you are going to prohibit more buyers from being interested. More buyers make for a better price. You're also lengthening the time, the process, or days on market. You're slowing it down by cheating out here because less means slower. And lastly, if you can't get over the fact that lowering the price into the right range, and I'd rather see you do it from the start, is anything other than giving it away. In other words, there's no such thing. Just get the thing right from the start or make your adjustment quickly, and you won't give it away because you can't. It's impossible. Mechanism doesn't work that way unless it's an intentional giveaway. All right, let me summarize this in a key point here. When you have the wrong asking price on your property, you are the cause of negative market forces that include scaring away real buyers, lengthening your process, and risking going stale. That happens. Pricing your property correctly from the start makes you a smart, savvy seller and not somebody trying to hurt themselves by giving your property away. Okay? Now remember, you can take immediate action to get started in the right direction if you need to sell or buy property right now or in the very near future by getting our free step-by-step guides we have waiting for you at griffincourses.com. That's Griffin courses.com. All right. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast if you like this subject about selling, and eventually we'll get into buying and we'll do some agent stuff so that you don't miss out on these episodes, because we upload all the time and we post them all over our social media channels. So remember, turn on those notifications for Griffin Realty Group. Nice little gold logo. You can find us. I know there's other Griffins out there in the world, but Griffin Realty Group, you can find us by that little gold logo. That's where we are. We'd also appreciate if you would share this content with somebody that needs to hear this about selling a property, buying a property, just getting the help they need. Send them over to griffincourses.com as well. And remember, hey, thanks for listening, but nobody's coming to help you with this stuff. So go get to work on your own plan for buying or selling and ask your questions. Okay? Danny.Griffin at thegriffin.co, not com.co is what it is. Danny.Griffin at thegriffin.co. I'll answer your questions right here on the podcast in the future if we can get some participation. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.